Hello, beautiful Flying Upstream listeners and viewers. Welcome back to another episode. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when you decide it is not too late to reclaim your voice or your dreams. In this episode, we're going to explore what it really means to rewrite your life story after decades of fear, doubt, and emotional survival. From long silences to bold cross country adventures, today's conversation is a reminder that you're never too old, too broken, and it's never too late to begin again. Born in Athens, Greece, as an Air Force brat, Teri Brown came into this world with an imagination full of stories to tell. She now calls the North Carolina coast home, and the peaceful nature of the sea has been a great source of inspiration for her creativity. Not letting 2020 get the best of her, Terry chose to go on an adventure that changed her outlook on life. She and her husband Bruce rode a tandem bicycle across the United States from Astoria, Oregon to Washington, D.C., successfully raising money for Toys for Tots. She learned she is stronger than she realized and capable of anything she sets her mind to. Terry graduated from UNC Greensboro with a multitude of degrees, majors in elementary education and psychology, and in math and sociology. She just couldn't settle on one thing. While homeschooling her four children, she began writing her career by focusing on small businesses, writing articles, blog posts, and website content. During this time, Terry published five nonfiction self help books, and today we welcome her to the Flying Upstream podcast. Terry, it is a pleasure to have you here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Of course, I'm ready to jump right into the one thing I am just
Let me guess. It was that I graduated from UNCG. No, that wasn't it. It is
that wasn't the bike ride.
right.
Oh my goodness. So tell me about that. How did that come about?
Okay, so in order to really explain the bike ride, I've got to go back just a little bit. I I got married. I had four beautiful children. My husband and I, we could not find a middle ground. There was just no good space for us. We ended up getting a divorce and I remarried. And that remarriage was probably the biggest mistake of my life. Turns out that he was an emotionally abusive person and I stuck with that marriage for 14 years because I didn't want to be divorced twice. So I already felt like I had a stigma. Divorce is just not something that we do in my family, and here I am and now it's like, oh my gosh, I've made a mistake. And I knew it. I think I knew it pretty quickly, but man, I'm a determined person and I was going to I'm going to fix it, right? I'm going to fix this thing. And even though I knew what was happening and I knew it was emotional abuse, you still get damaged. I don't care how much what kind of armor you put on. It gets in your skin.
Yeah.
So in 2017, I finally got out of that relationship. I had drawn a line in the sand. He crossed that line. I left. I'm still grateful to this day that he crossed that line because I might still be there trying desperately to fix something that couldn't be fixed. But just because I got out of the relationship does not mean that I was instantaneously fine. I had spent
Mhm.
14 years being told that I was not good enough, that nothing that I did was good enough, that I didn't have value, that I couldn't do anything, that I wasn't a capable person. And despite not wanting to believe it, it was there and it was there in my head. My son had a friend who was walking the Appalachian Trail at the same time that I was leaving this abusive relationship. And for some reason, I started reading his blogs as he's walking this, and I thought, oh, I want to do something like that. I want to do something big and bold that will prove to the world that I still have value. Now, as it turns out, the world did not believe I didn't have value. That was me, but I thought I needed to prove it to other people. Now in waltzes Bruce, who becomes my third husband eventually. And it's crazy. We could have a whole conversation that lasted hours just about that in itself, because I was never getting married again, never having a relationship again. I was done. I'd picked twice, I had done poorly twice, and I was just done with the whole thing. But he kind of waltzes in and doesn't leave. He just keeps being there regardless of how crazy I'm acting. And he said, I've always wanted to ride across the United States on a bicycle, because he had seen some college kids do it back in 1976. And he was in the military then. It's not like he could have stopped and joined them, but that had just been this, wow, if I could do that. And I thought, oh, now that would be an adventure. And I said, is this something you're going to talk about until the day you die, or are you going to do it? He said, I want to do it. I said, count me in. Now, I wasn't planning to marry him. I just figured I would go on this grand adventure with him. What's really crazy is I had not been on a bicycle in 40 years. So we're talking about way outside of my comfort zone.
Oh my
This
goodness.
isn't Teri doing Teri. This is Teri like, whoa, what is Teri doing? And Bruce had been a cyclist for years and years and years. He was really good. He did age appropriate, they call it cycling, but you do it in age groups. And so, and he was always winning in his age group and all of these things. And I hadn't been on a bicycle in 40 years. So we decided that we would go on a tandem bicycle, because he couldn't go faster than me and I couldn't go slower than him. Like, we were going to have to work together, and it was the only way we would make it across. So we started doing all of these rides. And in the meantime, I ended up falling in love, and we did get married. And now we're getting ready to leave. It was like March of 2020. Well, you know what happened in March of 2020, right? COVID.
Yeah.
And we figured that we weren't going to be able to go. But sometime in May, we recognized that things were opening up a little and maybe we would be able to do this trip. And we decided if we could leave by the middle of July, that we could still make it across the United States before it got too cold. We actually started our trip on like the 29th of June, and we finished up October the 3rd or 4th, somewhere right in there. And yeah, so we did. We started in Astoria. We rode all the way to Washington, D.C. Our reason for stopping where we did was my husband is a Marine, and we were raising money for Toys for Tots. So stopping at the Marine Corps Memorial in Washington, D.C. seemed like the perfect place to stop. And so that's kind of the why behind what we did.
That is amazing. So, was this like when y'all did this, was it like a group, like an organized thing?
It was
No.
just he and I. All by ourselves, nobody following us. We had a tandem bicycle with what they call panniers, which are like backpacks that hang on the bicycle wheels. So we had front panniers and rear panniers. We each had a little backpack. Mine just had water. I couldn't handle too much weight on my shoulders. And then we pulled a trailer, like a kid's trailer, but it had all of our camping gear and things in it. So we looked like a small circus as we went by. And sometimes kids would wave at us as we would go by. And I would yell, the elephants are in the back. I mean, that's what we felt like, was just this, big spectacle. But no, that's what we did all by ourselves.
Wow. I mean, talk about the testament that like of creating strength in a relationship though. I mean,
Right. So
that
we tell everyone that 3 months on a tandem, so little over 3 months on a tandem, is like 20 years of marriage.
I bet.
So wherever we are in marriage, we can add 20 years, because it's 6 years in earth time, 26 years in tandem time. So that's
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I can totally attest to that. That's beautiful. So, you started reading this blog and that was contributed to what got you
Right.
to this amazing. I'm even more baffled now. I have to say, I'm going to backtrack a little because when you said it, I thought it was one of those things that are organized where it's like everybody, a bunch of people doing it at the same time together
Right.
and they just like have meeting points. But you two were just like, yeah, no, we're going to do this
We're
alone.
going to do this. And then to make it even crazier, it was COVID. So sometimes we would get someplace and think this is where we're going to stop. And there wasn't a place anymore.
Oh my God.
The campground is not open. The we went to one town where we thought that we would be able to stop and kind of refresh, and the town was essentially closed. We couldn't find one place open to get, not even get water. And we saw a man standing outside watering his flowers, and we asked him if he would help us. I
Wow.
mean, it was because we were hot and we were tired, and there was nothing open.
Wow. This is,
Yeah.
I'm truly amazed. I'm beyond, I was amazed before while I was reading about it. And as you're sharing it, I mean, that is beautiful though. And I love that you're putting this story out there because I really, it speaks to not just relationship wise, that's a whole other layer
Right.
too. Um, but to the power and choice, like, and when we decide something and you just do it, right?
Right.
You said those words and they were so impactful as you were saying them. Is like, is this something you're going to do or is this something you're going to talk about forever?
Right. Right. Because I don't know, I now especially, I have decided I don't like the idea of a bucket list. I do not want to part this earth with a list of things I wish I had done. I
Woo!
would rather leave this earth with 3 things I'm in the process of doing. Even if I haven't made it that far in the preparations, even if it's still in the infancy, at least I was making strides towards doing something. And if you're not going to make a stride toward doing it, just get rid of the list. I don't want to leave here saying, "Oh, there's 47 things on my list and I never even, I never got to them." I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that very much. And it's true. I think for a lot of us, like for me, writing things down gets them out of my brain. And it has helped on like my healing journey and just my ongoing emotional and mental health. But when I think about that and I think about writing it down, then it does leave my brain. Then I take no action on it. So I
Right.
love that you shared it that way because it gives
Yeah.
me a new perspective. So thank you
Yeah.
for that. I want to get to
Absolutely.
your writing.
Okay.
So you read this blog and inspired you to go and do the action and do the things. What started your own writing journey? What made you, was it that blog? What was it that made you start writing?
Okay, so it was the ride itself. I had been writing for small businesses, and I had written some nonfiction that I was paid to write. It's not like writing fiction. It's not like writing your own creativity stuff. It was, you'd have a company that said, "Hey, I need this book on real estate, and can you help me?" Sure, they'd pay you a fee up front. You would take all the facts, you'd find a way to present them in a nice little package, and out it came. And it would have my name on it, but it wasn't me.
Right.
It was just facts. I wanted to write, but I'm stuck in this really bad relationship, and I can't I can't do it. I can't do it because if someone doesn't like what I've written, I already am living at home with someone who doesn't like anything I do. I can't, I just can't do it. I can't be vulnerable enough to let someone else also dislike me. And trust me, when you write things, there are people who don't like what you write, and it's I've learned it's okay, but at the time I wouldn't have been able to handle it. Well, I got out of that relationship. I start writing, but I'm not showing it to anyone because I don't feel good. I don't feel like I can do anything. Well, as we finished up the ride, very last day, we're coming up a hill. My husband says, "Do you see that flag?" I said, "Yes." He said, "That's it. That's where we're stopping." Well, I started to laugh and cry and laugh and cry and laugh. And I was just a big emotional mess. And then it was like I had an epiphany, and it was, I can do anything. I just rode across the United States on a tandem bicycle. It is not a matter of can I do it? It's a matter of what. What do I want to do? And so I asked myself, what do you want? And it was, I want to be an author. And 14 months later, my first novel came out.
Wow. So back to back. So you right across the United States, realize
Yep.
after you've done it, I did that, which to be fair, like how many other
Right. There's
people.
so few people that have ridden across the United States. And then when you throw in the fact that it was on a tandem, it's even fewer people. But even more than that, it was me that did it. I'm not an athlete. Athleticism is not like one of my list of skills. I've always been the klutzy kid. I was picked last for every team. I mean, it was that's who I am. And I've grown very accustomed to that. That's just what I am. I made it across the United States on a bicycle. Well, heck, if I can do that, what's stopping me from anything else that I want to do?
I love that.
So
I love
I essentially said, okay, Teri, what do you want?
I love that.
I said, I want to be an author. And so I became one.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that book that you wrote after the
Yeah.
bike ride, because you had other things written before, what was that like? What was writing that? How did that feel?
So Sunflowers Beneath the Snow was actually something that I had written before the bike ride, but I hadn't shown anyone. And so I pulled that out, kind of dusted it off. I didn't know what I was doing. I made all kinds of mistakes in terms of like showing it to people long before it was ready, but everything fell into place anyway. I think it was supposed to happen. This was my time to shine. It was supposed to happen. And I found the right people who could help me. I found the right editor. I found everyone who was willing to take this unpolished me and say, wow, I think I see a gem under there. Let's do something with that. And I had all of this help. And then, bam, in January of 22, that first book came out. And it was, well, I've cried so many times in the last 3 years, and it's good cry, but it's the first time you see your name in print, the first time you get to hold the book, the first time you see the cover, the first time that you had your first sale, the first, all of it, the first review. And I would just sob because I had done this thing that I wanted to do that I didn't believe I would be able to do. And then I did it. So,
That's beautiful. What limiting beliefs do you think you shed along the way, along this journey?
oh, I mean, there's things about, I thought I was too old. I really felt like I was done. Like, what can a person at my age do? I've had two marriages that failed, and I guess I'll sit and knit and be a grandma. I mean, I couldn't imagine that I could do more. So there was just the age thing, and then the I'm not good enough. That
Mhm.
I don't have the value. That no one will want to read anything that I wrote. I'm not good. I'm just not good enough. I don't have the skills. People will laugh at me. They will think that I'm crazy. And guess what? All of those things have happened to some degree or another,
Yeah,
but it doesn't matter because I've made the decision I'm going to be an author. And so it's I think it was that was the biggest thing is I decided who I was. And once I recognized who I was and who I wanted to be, I just went for it and I didn't worry so much about what other people said anymore.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, you don't
That's
like it, don't read it. I just,
yeah, yeah. It
yeah,
speaks to choice though too, right?
yeah,
Just like you made your own choice that you decided who you were going to be. Everybody else has a choice.
right,
Read it, don't read it. Look at it, don't look at it.
right,
Walk by it or pick it up. And
right.
there's so much power in that, from the tiny little things to the really big things.
Absolutely. And I think too that, you know, I've recognized that not everybody's going to like what I write, and that's okay. I don't like everything I read.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even mean that what I've picked up was necessarily bad. It means that it wasn't good for me right now. Maybe it didn't speak to me in this moment because it's not where I am right now, or who knows. But it doesn't really mean anything about the person who wrote it. It's more about me. It doesn't speak to me at the moment. And so when people don't like something I've written, I mean, does it hurt? Well, of course it does. I always take a few minutes to go ahead. I tell everyone that I wail and gnash teeth for about 2 minutes. Oh, I can't believe it. And then I say, okay, not everybody likes my work. And then I just move on,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's okay to let it hurt because, I'm human. It does hurt. Wow, someone didn't like what I wrote. Ah! But then I just reframe it. Well, not everybody likes everything, and I don't like everything, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And you
I
just move
love that.
on. Yeah.
I feel like it also is empowering for both the receiver and the person giving the information, because I feel it is an opportunity for growth from both
Absolutely.
perspectives.
Absolutely. And I always look when someone has something negative to say. I always look and say, okay, let's look at that, take a step back. Don't be the author at the moment, just be an author and look at this information. Is this something that you're willing to fix in your work? Is it something you can fix? Is it something that needs fixing? Or is this a me problem or a them problem?
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a negative way, but is this a didn't really suit them, Or is it I didn't write it well? And if I didn't write it well, I'd love to learn how to do better.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, tell me what I need to do. But I also recognize that some people just aren't going to like it. And you know, I could cover it in diamonds and they're still not going to like it. And that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. At what moment do you feel like it was the beginning of returning to yourself? Whether it was the physical journey or the emotional journey, or while you were polishing your book, that first book you published after the
I
ride.
think, it's funny. I think that when I finally crossed over the Rocky Mountains, because I was terrified of that, I just I was so afraid of that whole idea that was the thing that was going to stop me. And I knew it. I just knew that I was never going to make it over the Rocky Mountains. And it was hard. And I'm not going to, I won't sugarcoat it. The last 2 miles over the Rocky Mountains, I thought I was dying. I couldn't get any air because we were up so high, and I live on the coast of North Carolina where it is, sea level, and I'm up in the mountains and can't get air, and my husband is pushing the bike because it's so steep that we can't even sit on it at this point. I
Mm.
can't help him push it because I can't breathe. I'm, 20 feet behind him. He's pushing the bike with all the gear, and I'm going, behind him. But when we finally made it to the top, and I realized we're at the top, and that is the biggest climb that we're going to do, and I made that, I think that's kind of when a switch happened. And
Mm.
not that everything became easy after that, because we had many hard spaces after that. And even a few times where I thought I might quit, that I've had enough and this isn't fun anymore and I'm done. But I think that was kind of the first little switch that said, look at what you just did. That big, huge, scary thing that you made so big and scary in front of you, and it's now behind you. You did that. And I think from that point is where I started maybe seeing more healing happening, where I was able to hear those thoughts of you can't and change them into but you just did.
Yeah, that's beautiful. When you were polishing off your book, what
Yeah.
is the title again?
Sunflowers Beneath the Snow was the first one. Yeah.
Sunflowers Beneath the Snow. When you were remastering that, essentially, what did it help heal? Because it was kind of like your past and then like the new you. How did that?
I think that the difference between me when I wrote it and me when I was rewriting it and getting it ready is that the doubts were
Mm.
not there as, I mean, yeah, they still were there some, but I could put them away.
Yeah.
I could recognize them for what they are. My husband would always laugh and say, we called it my swamp gas, where things would be fine. And then all of a sudden, bloop, 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 it would bubble up. And then there would be this, nasty smell of stuff. And it used to be that when that happened, it could be days, maybe even weeks of me feeling horrible and rotten and trying to contain it and figure out what to do with it. And after that ride, it was more like it would happen. I would recognize what it was. I would acknowledge it. I would put it away in a box where it belonged, and I would move on. And it was, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 2 hours, but it was never days. It was I could recognize it for what it was. So that doubt went away, and I realized that I was a capable person, and that if I want something enough, that I can achieve it. It's just a matter of, am I willing to put in the effort? And the answer was yes, I'm willing to put in the effort, so I'm going to make it happen.
That's amazing. What is one piece? Well, before I get to
Yeah.
that, so it was Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, the one
Right.
that you wrote first after the ride.
Right.
What other ones have you written since then?
So then the following January, An Enemy Like Me came out, and that's a World War II history. And then a year after that, in January of 24, Daughters of Green Mountain Gap came out. And that's set in the mountains of the Appalachian Mountains in the 1890s. And then this year in February, my 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure, which are the life lessons I learned while riding across the United States, that came out. And then in April of this year, my first children's book came out. So I wrote a picture book.
You've been busy.
Yeah, well, I am a busy person.
I love that. It's probably hard as an author, I can't imagine. Is there one that's your favorite so far
Yeah,
from
so people ask that, and that is a hard question because the truth is they're all my favorites for different reasons. Um, Daughters of Green Mountain Gap is the one that is selling the best at the moment. Um, I think the one that has my heart at the moment is 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure. What you may not know is that my husband in June of 23 was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is an incurable brain cancer, and he passed away in January. And then 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure came out in February. So it was already kind of in the process, and I let it go ahead and go out. I considered trying to pull it back and wait a while, and then I decided no, I was going to go for it. So being able to talk about this wonderful trip that we took and this ability to connect the way we connected and to add 20 years of marriage to a short, he passed away just before our 6th anniversary. So we didn't get as much time as I would have liked, but I got this. And so right now to be able to come out and talk about, these great adventures that we had together and the fun that we had together and the closeness that we established. So in a lot of ways, I think that's my favorite at the moment.
I love that. And thank you for turning that pain into something so beautiful and sharing it with the rest of us because those journeys are not easy. I'm sure there are not words unless you've gone through it that can really explain, going through something like that. But it sounds like we got a little bit of the beauty of what came from that. So,
Right. I think that's been the thing that has helped me the most, is this idea that I can get there. There was so much good. There was so much good. And sure, I could focus on the fact that he's gone. And sometimes I do. I mean, let's be honest. It's only been 6 months and I'm still trying to figure out all of this and navigate it. But I got so much from this relationship. And the fact that I can go out and celebrate it with other people and talk about all these wonderful things and the things that I get to remember and talk about instead of the sickness, which is a terrible thing to remember. And who wants to remember that part? Instead, I get to talk about, the last 2 miles up over the Rockies is it's a much better story, at least for me, than talking about, the last 2 days. I would rather talk about those last 2 miles over the Rockies. So.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with all of us. And as we get ready to wrap up, what is one piece of advice that you'd give to someone, whether they are, stuck in their head about writing, whether they're stuck in their head about marriage and doing it again, or anything, big life advice that you'd love for someone to take away?
I think that the thing I want people to understand is everything you need to be successful is already inside of you. Now, it may be buried. The world and life and all the things have probably buried it underneath a bunch of junk, but it's in there. And if you can't find it, find someone that can help you find it, whether it's a therapist or a minister or a parent or a child or a book or something, because it's in you. Now it's just a matter of finding it and bringing it out and shining it up and remembering who you are.
I love that. That is the message here at Flying Upstream. So you said it so beautifully, so perfect to our listeners. If you have been waiting for a sign that it is your turn to rise, I think this is it. So I hope that Teri's story inspires you. And Teri, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for sharing your story, not just with us here today, but in your writing, in your books, and in every other adventure that you take on.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Of course. And if you are listening or watching and you are a rebel at heart, looking for your people, feel free to join us at flyingupstreampodcast.com.